What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Green Bay Packers Report. My name is Joey Petersen. We got a really awesome episode coming up for y'all. We are joined by Giants Now host Marshall Green, and we're going to break down this game, some Jeff Hafley rumors, some Matt Lafleur rumors as well. It's going to be a ton of fun. But speaking of Sunday's game, if you want to win, go ahead, hit that thumbs up button.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Appreciate everyone for clicking on today's show. I'm joined by my guy, Joey Petersen, the host of our Packers channel here at Chat Sports. We're going to do a preview for this matchup. Joey, unfortunately, Jackson Dart not going to be in this game, but a lot to look forward to, and I'm excited to get an up-close and personal look at the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit nervous about facing Jameis Winston. You never know what you're going to get. He has one game a year where he looks like prime Tom Brady, and then pretty much every game after that, he looks like normal Jameis Winston. But who knows what's going to happen, man? It's been an interesting last couple weeks in Green Bay. Couple of losses in a row. Obviously, the one at home against Carolina, and then they backed it up this week with a loss on Monday Night Football at home again to the Philadelphia Eagles. So hopefully turn some things around with an NFC East opponent this week again.
Yeah, I was a little upset that you guys couldn't beat the Eagles. It's always fun to see the Eagles lose. But I do love how the Packers losing means Matt Lafleur is on the hot seat. Maybe you could talk a little bit more towards that. Could it be a world where maybe Jameis Winston beats the Packers, Matt LaFleur fired, and that lands this beautiful guy right here in a Giants head coaching spot?
Yeah, it's interesting because it seems like a legitimate possibility. A lot of times, like with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens, that's just fans being upset at their head coach for being there for a very long time, and people just get impatient. But with Matt LaFleur, they've got a new president in Green Bay in Ed Policy. He very intentionally did not, re-up on Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst's contracts because he wants to see how this year goes. And I'm here to tell you, Marsh, if they don't make the playoffs, or maybe even if they do make the playoffs and are a one and done yet again, I do believe he's going to be on the hot seat. Now, I don't think he's on the hot seat for any time this season. I just think with the talent on this roster, they always believe that no matter how many games you lose in a row, say it's 3 and you lose to the New York Giants, I think they believe in the talent that you could still end this season strong and maybe do something in the playoffs. So I don't think a firing in season is on the table right now, but I do believe that if you continue to lose games that you shouldn't, like to the Browns and to the Panthers, then his seat could be very hot come the end of this year.
So if you're like me and you want Matt LaFleur to be the next Giants head coach, you got to go get a win this Sunday. On a more serious note, though, there is a defensive coordinator who coaches for the Green Bay Packers, Jeff Hafley. Joey, a lot of smoke around him being the next guy up for the New York Giants. Adam Schefter said an NFL owner called him at a random and said, I think Hafley would be a good fit for the New York Giants. Schefter says that has never happened. Hasn't been a coach in the NFL before. Did coach Boston College for a couple of years. He has this Packers defense humming. What can you tell Giants fans about what maybe they might be getting in Hafley if he's the next guy?
Yeah, well, he's a New Jersey native as well, so it'll be coming home back up to the Northeast. Going to have a ton of family at this game this weekend. Jeff Hafley has been phenomenal. And after that game, I believe it was week 2 against the Washington Commanders. Now, mind you, at this point in time, we did think the Washington Commanders, at least offensively, were going to be a little bit more formidable than they have been. Jaden Daniels was healthy that game, but regardless, I remember after that game in my instant reaction saying, oh man, Jeff Hafley might not be a Green Bay Packer next year just because of all the impressive things you were seeing from this defense. And I remember we talked about it, I believe on Monday or Tuesday, of the fact of obviously, he's got a great defensive line. Rashawn Gary, Micah Parsons, Devontae Wyatt's been great on the interior. But what impresses me the most about Jeff Hafley is what he's being able to get out of this cornerback room. Keyshawn Nixon is your cornerback 1. Carrington Valentine is your cornerback 2. And he's got those guys playing like they are all pros. Incredibly impressive stuff. He's a guy who's not going to blitz a ton. I believe the Packers are bottom 5, bottom 10 in the league in blitz rate. He's going to play a ton of zone. I know that was a big concern of him coming into Boston College. He's a 4-3 scheme guy. played a lot of cover 3 in college, but honestly, that's just kind of what you do in college football. It's a lot easier to play zone coverage and, just be a little bit safer for anything up the back end when you're playing a college quarterback. He shifted away from that. I think people are a little bit more nervous about him just being a 4-3, cover 3 type guy in the NFL, and he hasn't been that. Now, again, like I mentioned, he does play majority zone coverage, but that's kind of everybody in the NFL these days. I've been really impressed with what he's done, moving from the college ranks to the NFL. And after 2 years in Green Bay, just the character of guy that he is, the intensity that he coaches with, and the results we're seeing on the field, I really do believe Jeff Hafley is going to be a good head coach one day.
Yeah, and look, this is a kind of a similar situation that the NFC North saw last year. You go back to the Lions taking on the Chicago Bears for the last time, and Ben Johnson, he emptied the bag play calling wise to try to win over the Chicago Bears, maybe their fans, maybe their ownership, and Hafley's going to get an opportunity to do those. I want to pop those stats back up real quick, then we'll talk about this football game that I think all Packers fans are expecting a win. But Joey, when I did a deep dive on these stats, things that stuck out to me is it seems like every major category, the Packers are top 10. Points per game, yards per game, points per play, yards per play, touchdowns per game, third down percentage. They only allow teams to convert 36% of the time. But it was the takeaways and the sacks that I don't think paint the picture properly of the type of player he is. Why do you think those numbers are lower than the others? Or is it just they get off the field on 3 downs and they don't allow other teams to make those mistakes?
Yeah, I think honestly, with those numbers being lower than the other ones, that almost makes the other ones more impressive because you're still not allowing a lot of points and you're not really taking the football away, which is hilarious because this team was one of the best at taking the football away last year. Xavier McKinney was one of the league leaders in interceptions.
Nice.
They're just sometimes turnovers. They're just a luck thing at the end of the day. And I know it's weird to say that as analysts of this sport and as analysts of this league, but it kind of just boils down to that. Now, when it comes to sacks, what I've noticed about this team is it comes and goes in waves. They'll have games where they have 4 or 5 sacks, and you're thinking, okay, things are getting back into form. And then these past 2 games, 0 sacks. 0 sacks. Against the Eagles, against the Panthers. And to me, that's a little bit of a problem, just given the players that you have in Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons. Now, they're getting consistent pressure, but as John Gruden always says, I don't want pressures. Get them to the ground. Really curious to see if they're going to have a little bit more success this weekend against this Giants offensive line, though.
Yeah, look, the Giants offensive line has been pretty good for the most part, but there has been some games that they've struggled, and I want to transfer that part of the game. I'm a little bit worried about this Giants offense. I think everybody should going into this game. The Packers, one of the best defenses in the NFL. You have your third-string quarterback start in this game. We know no Malik Neighbors. We know no Cam Scadaboo. Jameis is going to have it tough. So I guess my question to you, Joey Petersen, is this. How do you want the Packers to play, game plan, gear up to slow down Jameis? You know he's going to throw it. He's going to sling it all over the field. He's never seen a throw he doesn't like. He's going to throw some touchdowns potentially, but he's also going to throw some interceptions as well.
Yeah, I'll never forget, watching the Cleveland Browns take down the Baltimore Ravens last year, and Jameis Winston threw for 330 and 3 touchdowns as well. So he's got any throw on the field in his bag. I would like to see the pressure be dialed up. I think anytime you're facing a quarterback that has an affinity for turning the football over, it's just going to be better when you're putting him under pressure. Now we know he has a tendency to be able to escape the pocket, create plays, and extend plays with his leg. But regardless, I don't still, even though they've had great seasons, have the utmost trust in guys like Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine to be in coverage for a very, very long time. I think that's part of why their numbers have been so good this year is because of the pressure that Green Bay's been able to get to the quarterback and forcing, quick throws out. I think that is something that I want to see this week. And also an emphasis on run defense. I know that they did really well against Saquon, but the week prior to that, Rico Dowdle could pretty much get anything he wanted. And outside of Devontae Wyatt on that interior, they struggle a little bit in the depth in that category.
Yeah, and that's actually good to hear. Look, I watched every play of that Eagles and Packers game, and I was thoroughly impressed by the Packers defense. So to hear that you're a little worried about the run defense makes me a little excited, because that's the only way I think the Giants are going to consistently be able to move the ball. You're looking at Tyrone Tracy. You're going to look at Devin Singletary. Those guys are going to have to keep you out of 3rd and long, because if Jameis Winston is trying to pay rent on 3rd and long time and time again this week, it is not going to be good news for the New York Giants. So we talked about the Giants offense. I want to talk about the Packers offense as well.
Lots to talk about there.
I don't know if I want to say that was a defensive slugfest that we saw on Monday night or whatever day it was, or it was an offensive shit show, to be quite fair. But what is going on with the Green Bay Packers offense right now?
It's so confusing. It's so frustrating because they're being able to move the football. That's the thing. They've had 12 possessions in opponent's territory in their last 2 ball games. They've come away with 20 points. They went 1 for 5 in the red zone against Carolina. You had a turnover. You had a missed field goal. You had a 4th down that you did not convert either. And you just saw time and time again, you'd cross the 50-yard line against the Philadelphia Eagles and you'd stall out. I think there's multiple reasons for that. One of them, no trust in the kicker right now. So unless it's inside the 35, they're not going to think about kicking that football because Brandon McManus is dealing with a little bit of an injury. I also just think that Matt Lafleur's been a little bit too conservative with Jordan Love, and the fact that he's just not letting him just go out there and be the quarterback that you're paying him $55 million a year to be. If you look at the advanced metrics against Carolina, this team passed the ball negative 10% less than expected against the Panthers. And that's why you lose games like that against Carolina. Games you're not supposed to lose because you're being overly conservative. I'm still a believer in Jordan Love. I would like to see them utilize him, let him throw it a little bit more, go back to play action. But I think the biggest difference from last year and this one is they're just not able to run the football. Josh Jacobs is dead last in the NFL in yards before contact, 1.7. That's last among all running backs. So that's a big concern for me. And, of course, when you're running football, you can open up everything else as well.
I was going to say the biggest concern for me is stopping the run against the Green Bay Packers, because the Giants are a team that is at the bottom of the league when it comes to yards per rush, when it comes to yards allowed on the ground per game, and they have not been able to stop the run. They weren't able to do it against the Philadelphia Eagles, who the Eagles have not been a good running team this year. They weren't able to do it against the 49ers. The Niners, they can't run the football all that well. Chicago, the Bears, they ran the football on the Giants, DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai as well. So the Giants have to find a way, like the Packers are going to try to do to the Giants, to put them in 3rd and long situations. So you can allow a guy like Brian Burns or allow a guy like Abdul Carter or Dexter Lawrence to pin their ears back. Before we continue to talk about this game, let's go into the injury report as well, because there are some big ones for the Giants. Joey, I don't know about you. It's late in the season. The Giants are beat up on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball. They're going to have 5 starters potentially not playing on Sunday. When you go to the Thursday injury report for the Giants, we know Jackson Dart is not going to play. But Bobby Okereke did not practice. He most likely is going to be out. Darius Slayton did not practice. Same for him. Kayvon Thibodeau did not practice. Tyler Nubin did not practice. So we are already talking about a team that cannot stop the run, and you have guys that play in the box. Tyler Nubin, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Bobby Okereke all potentially missing this game, as well as Rakeem Nunez-Roches. So that is why, Joey, I am hyper-focused on how are the Giants going to stop a run. And I am asking you, tell me why this is not going to be a get-right game for the Packers, because I think it is. I think they're going to get right on the ground, and they're going to explode offensively.
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the interior of the offensive line has struggled all year long. Elgton Jenkins, the guy who's been a center for the entirety of this season, moved from left guard to center over the offseason as they added Aaron Banks. He just fractured his ankle, so he's not going to be playing. Sean Ryan, who has been the right guard, worst right guard so far this season, one of them in football, he'll move to center, and then Jordan Morgan, 2024's first-round pick, will move to right guard. And so, I trust the tackles in Green Bay. I think Rasheed Walker and I think Zach Tom have been great, but it's the guards and it's the center play that just hasn't. And to me, it just looks like they're being out-physicaled almost every single time they try to run the football. Like I said, 1.7 yards before contact. dead last among running backs in the National Football League. He's barely getting past the line of scrimmage before opposing defensive linemen are hitting him. And that is a massive problem. And so I can see why you think it's going to be a get-right game for Green Bay, because New York has 2 wins this season. Green Bay's lost 2 pretty bad games back-to-back, both of them at home as well. But I just don't know if I see that in the cards, because it hasn't been in the cards already, and it feels like we're in week 11. You kind of just are who you are right now.
Yeah, I think I have a lot more faith in the Packers than you. Look, you watch them every week. You cover them. I get it. I've just seen this story all year long. Anytime the Giants have played a team that struggled in Area X, they find a way to execute and overcome it and produce for the New York Giants. I guess I'll ask you this question. The Packers win this game because blank.
I think because they score in the red zone. I think they're going to be able to drive the football. They've been able to do that all season long. It's just been capitalizing. All right, so if they're able to cross the 50, cross the 30, get into that red area inside the 20, and if they're able to convert that into points, and not even just points, if they're able to convert that into touchdowns, I believe they're going to win this game, because I do still have faith in this defense. Jameis Winston, third-string quarterback. He's going to be starting, going to be without some offensive weapons. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is not going to be in there. Obviously, Cam Skadwoo's not going to be in there. So I honestly trust this Packers defense. If they just held Philadelphia to 10, I've got a feeling they're going to be able to hold New York to at least that, probably single digits. If you could just score in the red zone, score them across the 50, that's how Green Bay's going to win this football game.
Yeah, and I would say the way I think the Giants win this game is, and this is probably the corniest thing I've ever said, is vibes. Strictly off of vibes. You've got the interim head coach boost going. How many times have we seen a team, they fire their head coach and all their players play way better for 1 week, and then all that kind of wears off and you get back to who you are. So game 1 of the Mike Kafka era, Joey, I'm interested to see how he is going to call this offense. I know that Jackson Dart won't be there. It'll be Jameis Winston, but we'll get to see really some maybe major differences that Kafka and Daboll had. I know Kafka has been the play caller all year long, but Daboll is an offensive coach, and he was drawing up game plans, and there was talk that maybe Kafka is just calling a Daboll offense. So we'll get to see that. And Jameis Winston for the vibes as well. I mean, third-string quarterback, interim head coach. Can the vibes be high enough for the Giants? I just don't really see anything when I look at all 53 players on both teams an advantage for this football team.
Yeah.
Even what you would describe in some as not a great offensive line for Green Bay, I thought they did at times hold up pretty well this year. And the Giants, they're potentially going to be out down Kayvon Thibodeau. Maybe this is the game Abdul Carter comes around and leaves with 2 sacks, but I don't know. I'm not very confident.
I think that brings you to my next question. Talk to me a little bit about this Giants defensive line, because I think going into the season, drafting Abdul Carter, having Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, there was so much hype and talk about this is going to be the best defensive line in football. What have you seen so far through the first 10 weeks of this season, and what could Green Bay expect facing up against some pretty good pass rushers?
Yeah, they just haven't been extremely dominant. Look, Brian Burns is having a defensive player of the year type of season. Already over double-digit sacks. Before last week, he was top 2 in tackles for loss. When it comes to overall stops, a tackle that's a negative play for the offense, he was at the top of that leaderboard. But you haven't really got any other dominant performances this year from anybody else. Dexter Lawrence, he set the bar so high for how good of a football player he's been. He just hasn't really played that well. He's probably been a B version of Dexter Lawrence, which is still a damn good football player. But when you talk about the things that you talked about, like I talked about, the Giants are going to win games. It's because of their core 4 on the defensive line. They haven't done it. And while Abdul Carter is at the top of the league in pressures, and he is at the top of the league in quick pressures as well, he just hasn't really rolled into that game-changing play as of yet. And when the Giants defense has needed to be their best, when there's been opportunities for this defensive line to close out games, they haven't done it. You were up double digits on the Denver Broncos in the fourth quarter. That's when your pass rush is supposed to win you the game. They didn't. You were up double digits in the fourth quarter against the Dallas Cowboys, and they didn't show up. You were up double digits against the Chicago Bears, and they didn't get it done. It's not all their fault, but when you're building a business, the part of your business that gets the most resources, the most assets, makes the most money, they're supposed to deliver the most results, and the Giants' pass rush hasn't done that. I also think, Joey, the lack of quality starters the Giants have in the corner room is affecting that. They are going to potentially getting back Paulson Adebo this week, but with the weapons Green Bay has, I know they're still dealing with some injuries as well. I think that I've seen this movie 1,000 times with the Giants. I don't know how they're going to stand up and respond. The Packers are struggling on offense. The Giants haven't been too great on defense. I don't know. I don't feel very well. If I had to give a prediction for this one, I would roll with Packers 24. I'll go Giants 13. 24-13 Packers over the Giants.
I think my prediction from the other day is 21-7. I think that New York may start fast, they may start quick, maybe even get an early touchdown. Everybody's kind of back on your heels a little bit, but I do think that the interim boost is a very, very real thing. But if you get punched in the mouth in a game, that fades away like that. Yep. It's very fabricated. It's not really there. And I think if Green Bay comes out and they come out physical and they strike early, I think New York's going to have a hard time, grabbing each other up and pulling each other through that game. But you did mention there are some injuries with the Packers right now, especially with their weapons. Matthew Golden was not playing in this last week's game against the Philadelphia Eagles. He's expected to be able to go. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. You got a ton of other wide receivers, like Romeo Doubs was a limited participant. I think he's going to be fine. Dontavian Wicks.
Love Doubs.
I love him as well. But like you see, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams, Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs was a full participant. Obviously, Tucker Kraft is going to be out for the rest of this year after tearing his ACL. And so they're limited in their pass catchers. They're limited in their playmakers. And that's how I ended my preview for this game was somebody's just got to step up and make a play. At the end of the day, it cannot just be on Jordan Love.
Yeah.
If you weren't named Josh Jacobs against the Philadelphia Eagles, the pass catchers, tight ends, wide receivers combined for 36 yards after the catch on Monday night. That cannot happen. Jaden Reed's been out since week 2 with that collarbone and foot surgery. He should be back, I'm believing, sometime around week 17.
Okay.
They play the Baltimore Ravens at home in Lambeau. I think that's kind of the target date. The funny thing is he was dealing with a Jones fracture, during the preseason, and he elected not to get surgery on it. Okay. And then he broke his collarbone in week 2, so they just doubled up.
Yeah,
they did collarbone surgery, foot surgery. I think he's going to be able to be back at the end of this season. But you're just limited, and the guys that Jordan Love can get the ball to. Matthew Golden's, I don't want to say disappointed. Everybody had very high hopes for him.
Yeah.
He's quite not living up to the first round expectations. But man, I'm just ready for somebody to step up onto this offense and make a play, because that's exactly what Tucker Kraft was. He turned a 5-yard comeback into a 30-yard gain time after time. And with him gone, you just kind of haven't had that.
We will both be live. Are you live on the channel for this game?
I will be live on the channel.
Awesome. We will both have watch parties on the Packers Report. Giants Now by Chat Sports. Joey, this was a blast. Appreciate you coming on. Excited to watch this game, my man. Let's go.